it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to share with you my June reading wrap-up. June was the month of Translate-a-thon and also the month of big epic fantasy, so without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to talk about all of the things that I read for Translate-a-thon first, and then I'm going to continue with the rest of the stuff that I read. So it's not in full chronological order, but bear with me. First up for Translate-a-thon, I read Cocoon Entwined Volume 1 by Yuriko Hara. This is a sort of mysterious, dark, thrillery story about queer yearning. It takes place in an all-girls high school, or it's like a school. It's a school complex where girls will start in elementary school and then move up the ladder until they become high school students. And when they get to the high school level, they will receive uniforms that are made from the hair of previous high school students who went there. And there is an interesting like hierarchical system of sisterhood in this school system, and there's a lot of potential for sapphic yearning, which this book is basically all about. And there is a mystery surrounding a girl who is related to the founder of the whole school system, and she seems to have a more negative view of the school system than any of the other girls there. And yeah, that's what it's basically all about. It's very hard to describe it. It follows a few different characters. There are point of views from like 3 separate characters in this first volume, and it's basically a peek into each of their experience at the school. And yeah, I was very much enthralled by this. I bought the second volume, and yeah, I'm curious to see where it will go. The aspect of the uniforms being made out of the girl's hair and seemingly being imbued by the girl's sort of memories and regrets is a very fascinating concept for me. And I gave Cocoon Entwined Volume 1 3 stars, so it has a ways to go in terms of like plotting and pacing, and like I feel like I don't fully know all of these characters. Like the characters presented are very much archetypes, so there's a little bit of improvement that needs to happen with the characters for me to really like get gripped. The art style is absolutely amazing, and especially considering how hair is very important to the story and to the atmosphere of the story, the way the artist manages to convey the feeling of hair and like how it moves and flows and what it means to these girls is it's very interesting. So yeah, this was a surprise find because I just picked this up on a whim. Then I read another manga all about queer yearning. This is Sweet Blue Flowers by Takako Shimura, who is also the author and artist behind Wandering Sun. And this omnibus volume collects the first 2 volumes of the manga, and I read them both. And this is basically another story about an all-girls school, like 2 different all-girls schools, and it follows the students there, and it follows their love lives, coming to terms with their sexuality, and also like allyship, because one of the girls deals with the fact that her best friend comes out to her and she has to figure out how best to be supportive for her and how to reconcile her own attraction. And it's basically all about questioning, coming to terms with your identity, staying true to yourself, and all about sapphic yearning. So, but it's more like a contemporary story, and it doesn't have like a supernatural twist. The art is very simplistic. Takako Shimura usually has a very simplistic art style with like line drawings and very much she uses a lot of negative space, not a lot of tones. It's very much like black and white and not a lot of like shading. She relies heavily on like line work to convey feeling, and her art has a very like innocent quality. I gave Sweet Blue Flowers, the Omnibus Volume 1, 4 stars. I really enjoyed it and I want to pick up the next one. Unfortunately, it seems to be sold out everywhere, so I have to wait a bit. But this was a really interesting and nice exploration, and I especially liked the fact that the characters were really flawed. Like, each of them has their own quirks and their own flaws, and they don't always make the best decisions, which makes them more human. So yeah, 4 stars. Then I read Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 0, which is the prequel to the Jujutsu Kaisen manga, and it was okay, it was serviceable, but I have to say that it didn't really wow me as much as the rest of that manga has done. Like, the main run of that manga has been more impressive to me, and I need to read more of the manga to figure this out, but I feel like this prequel did something plot-wise that has been retconned in the manga. I'm not sure yet because I'm not that far in the manga yet, but I have, based on things that I have read and things that I have heard, I feel like there is a slight retcon that has happened, which I'm not a big fan of. But like, it's a simple possession story. There's battling. It's a shonen battle series, but it definitely feels like a one-shot that wasn't fully developed yet. And there's like a lot more development in the main series. So I gave Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 0 3.5 stars, mostly for the characterization of the first years who are second years in the main series. I feel like this established them more as characters, so it was nice to have some more characterization for those characters who end up being full supporting members, full supporting characters in the main series. So yeah, that's why I gave it 3.5 stars, even though the story itself was a little bit lukewarm for me. Moving on to the books, I read Mehiläisten historia, or The History of Bees by Maija Lunde, and I gave this one 3.5 stars as well. I enjoyed it. It follows like 3 timelines. One is set in the past, one is set more or less in the present, and one is set in the future. And it follows various people and their lives with bees or without them. In the past, we follow an inventor who basically studies bees and is trying to develop a beehive, a standard beehive. And in the present, we are following a beekeeper who is starting to suffer from the loss of bees, like bees disappearing and dying out. And then in the future, we follow a character who lives in a world that has completely changed because of climate change and because bees have gone extinct. And it's an interesting novel, but I personally didn't fully get on with it, mostly because the characters themselves don't really have like a developmental arc. All the characters basically stay the same throughout the story. They go through plot motions and things happen to them, but nothing really changes for them mentally. Like they don't change as people, or they don't really reconcile with their flaws or their errors, and that made them read to me as shallow. Plot-wise, this was interesting, and it ties all the timelines very nicely together. Also, the Finnish translation had a lot of lost opportunities where actual like Finnish words could have been used instead of leaving them in English, which kind of bothered me. There was also like some blatant grammar errors which annoyed the hell out of me when I was reading this. So translation wise, I wasn't like the biggest fan, because the Finnish wasn't like, the Finnish could have been polished a bit more. So yeah, 3.5 stars. I liked this, but I don't think I'm really going to come back to this or read this again. So it was nice while it lasted, but I don't see myself really picking it back up or rereading it. It didn't become a new favorite. A book that did become a new favorite though is A Matka by Karin Tidbeck. I read the English version translated from Swedish, and it was one of the better like dystopian science fiction, almost bordering on horror stories that I have ever read. The atmosphere was incredibly well written and incredibly well developed. The world building wasn't spoon-fed to you, it was just like little by little the author expands on their ideas, and it was just a really wonderful story that I honestly wished could have been longer, because my main gripe with it was that it develops this mystery and is very well paced up until the end, and then the ending just sort of happens. It felt a little bit rushed, and I felt that I didn't get to really like simmer with it for a while like I did with the rest of the book. Like the rest of the book like lets you sit and breathe with the story moments, whereas the ending just sort of came out of nowhere like this and left you gasping for breath, for lack of a better term. So I ended up giving A Matka 4 stars, highly enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. Moving on from translated books to the other things that I read in the month of June. First up, I read Fair Isle and Fortunes by Nancy Warren. I listened to this on audio, and this was the last Vampire Knitting Club book that I finished. I haven't picked up any other since then, and honestly, I don't think I need to anymore. I feel like I was listening to these books as a sort of comfort after losing Hedda, and now I sort of have the tools and I have the capacity to deal with that grief, so I don't need these books anymore. And also they started to become a little bit repetitive, and something happens in Fair Isle and Fortunes that really irked me, and that is that the author retcons the main character's age. The main character has been 27 for the entirety of the series, and then in this book she suddenly becomes like, I think she was like 25, and they were like celebrating her 26th birthday, and I was like, no, you don't get to do that. She has been 27 this whole time. Stop it. There was no reason to retcon that, so that annoyed the crap out of me. So yeah, I gave Fair Isle and Fortunes 3 stars. I have been enjoying the Vampire Knitting Club. It's very like uncomplicated fun, but I don't think I'm going to continue on with the series anymore. Especially since I know that the main romantic couple is not the one I'm rooting for. So I have no horse in that race. And finally, the last books that I read in the month of June were the first two books in the Lifeship Traders trilogy, Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb and The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. And I friggin' loved these books. I binged this in a week. I also binged this in a week. And spoiler alert for my July reading wrap-up, I have already finished and read Ship of Destiny, so I have finished this whole series. I will say, Ship of Magic, some pacing issues, some like repetitiveness in terms of character point of view. Some characters are hashing out the same sort of moods and the same conversations, which can be a little annoying. But The Mad Ship is basically paced perfectly, manages to introduce a lot of cool world building elements, build up and reveal mysteries, and just these books are so good. Basically, this is all about like high seas adventure with piracy and like sea battles, live ships that are sentient, and also social commentary, because one major point of this series is slavery and commentating on the idea and practice of slavery through various sorts of people. We follow people who are pro-slavery, we follow people who are anti-slavery, and we follow people who are actually enslaved. So you really get to see all the horrible, gruesome detail of slavery being like discussed throughout this trilogy. Especially in these two books. In the final book it goes into a little bit more of an adventure mode, but I won't get into that now. So I would say that if you are someone who can't handle the topic of slavery, and especially like chattel slavery, be warned that this book really goes deep in those topics. I wasn't aware, and it kind of caught me by surprise, because everyone told me, yeah, it's a high seas adventure, summer fun time, like family drama. And yes, it is all of that as well, but it is also an anti-slavery narrative. So just keep that in mind, because the content is heavy, like really heavy at times. I gave Ship of Magic 4.5 stars. I gave Mad Ship 5 stars. I really enjoyed and loved these two books, and I found some of my new favorite characters and some of my most hated characters in these books. So yeah, like I liked Farseer trilogy, but I wasn't like the hugest fan. Now I am sold. I have officially been hobbed. Robin Hobb, like, I went and bought the entire Journeyman trilogy the other day. So, yeah. And there you have it. Those are all of the books that I have read in the month of June. Tell me in the comments, have you read any of these books? Which of these sounds the most interesting to you? And leave me a ship emoji down in the comments so that I know that you were here in honor of the Lifeship Traders. And I will see you in another video very soon. Bye bye!